But it's time to introduce the guest elephant rider presenters that we've got for you all today. So first up is Erika, and I think Erika is known to a few people in the room here, which is really cool, and people have done some work with her in the past, which is great. But Erika became an elephant rider, I believe, Erika, in October last year. Hopefully our system has got that right. And then went on to become a silver elephant rider just at the start of this month, potentially. Was it in April this year? And maybe in December last year, she emailed me with a little screenshot of a newsletter that you had written for Auckland Council, potentially, and with this really amazing story about how they've been using the game. And it just blew me away. I was just floored and inspired by the story she shared and the work she'd been doing. And I was like, wow, we need to share more of this with everybody, because the level of inspiration I got from that, I was like, imagine if some of you had access to those stories. So from that moment, I was like, when can we get Erika to come along and present at an Elephant Rider meetup? And we're fortunate that she said yes, and she wanted to come along and share today. So Erika is going to share her stories with us over the next 15 or so minutes. And thank you so much, Erika, for coming along. The Elephant Rider meetup is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here. Although I don't think I've got some of your anxiety about being here, and it's going to be good because there's some great stories. And once I get going, I'm super passionate about it. So let me please share my screen with you. And they're not pretty slides, but it's more about helping me remember the types of things I'd like to talk to you about. So thanks again, everyone, for coming. And I just want to try and move through the next slide. This is what I tend to talk about. I tend to talk about, when I'm in a work setting, who I am and what I've done, and the clients that I work with, and the certifications that I have. And for such a long time, this is how I turned up to work. It was all about the 25 years experience, and it's all about delivery. But more recently, it's about the people, because yes, we absolutely need to deliver. We need to deliver to our clients and to our customers. But how can we do that in a really fun way? We spend so much of our lives at work, and if we're not bringing our full selves to work, then I think we as individuals really miss out, and the teams really miss out, and our customers really miss out as well. So I work for a little company called Frank. I'm in the office at the moment, and I'm the head of transformation, and it's very much about transforming the way organisations and teams work, and how the people within those teams can work better together. And what I love about the ECD is it brings our human side to work. And these are the things that I think are probably more important than the experience and the certifications and qualifications. So I'm a mum of 3 awesome kids, been married for 17 years. I've got a 90-year-old mum. I've got friends. I'm a netball coach. I've got an olive grove. I love making sneakers. And when we can pull all that sort of our real selves and we can bring that to our teams, I think it's just such a richer experience for us personally, and for us professionally, and for the people that we're actually working with and delivering to. And so I really like, Jeremy, how you talk about humanizing our workplaces, because we are all people and people do all the work. So if we can pull that together nicely, then we can have some great workspaces doing some great work. I was first introduced to Jeremy through the Wellington community. I used to travel down there every week, and it's a very small community. And I'd started hearing things about, oh, this guy, Jeremy Dean's doing stuff about talking about emotions and feelings at work. I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And so, yes, I've kind of felt like a bit of a stalker, because I'd been following Jeremy, but never was able to kind of get onto one of the courses, because I really wanted to do it in person. I love that the power of meeting people in person and being able to play with the cards. COVID put a bit of a stop to that. And it was when I was locked down with my children and my husband, having a lovely time, but thinking, oh my gosh, the teams I'm working with are feeling really disconnected, and I'm feeling really disconnected from them. Thinking, I really need something that we can do remotely to pull people back together and get that sense of teaminess and actually get some more energy into what we're doing. And I first played the game with a girlfriend who came round. She was in our bubble. She wasn't having a very cool time at work. And I was talking to her about the ECD and got quite excited. We'd had a few wines, and I said, do you mind if I pull it out and we just have a bit of a chat about, how you're feeling at work and how you want to feel? And it was literally over a couple of glasses of something nice. And I pulled the cards out and I said, just have a play with these. Have a look at these black ones and tell me how you do want to feel at work. And on the back of that, we put a little bit of a plan together in terms of, well, what are you going to do to feel more of the good stuff? And how are you going to reduce those feelings that you're not enjoying about work? And so that was my first use of it. And I thought, oh gosh, my teams at Auckland Council, I think, could really get some benefit from it. And I facilitated quite a few workshops in my time, but I didn't want to jump straight into it. So I thought, practice on my kids. So these are my kids around the kitchen table. And it was a super interesting experience. So my daughter's very tactile. She's 13. So she loved the feel of the cards, and they are such beautiful, beautiful cards. Whereas my boys, 10, 11, they're tech natives. They love technology. So I was practicing some of the online remote stuff with them. And I was asking them questions around, well, how have you felt learning at home, during lockdown? And we'd just been told in Auckland that we were, not going back to school for the next term. And then my question was, how do you want to feel? What can we do to make it better moving forward? And in terms of my most profound moment with the game, it was the kind of comments that these cards enabled my kids to have the conversation with me. So normally when I'd ask my kids, how are you feeling? It's either fine or bored. That was a standard conversation around lockdown. But the cards actually gave them a language, and it gave them words to explain those deeper feelings. And it blew me away. And it was actually, quite confronting as a parent to find out how anxious they were about it, how much they missed their friends and their cousins and their schoolmates. But what we did, and what I love this stuff. What I love about the emotional culture canvas is it's not just talking about this and expressing this stuff. It's what's the plan? What are we going to do? And so we actually sat down and go, okay, we're here for goodness knows how long. How are you guys going to feel more connected to your mates? And we did things like then set up Zoom calls. We had family pizza nights. We did, the online house parties and that sort of stuff. So that was really amazing. And then I ran a couple of sessions with my teams at Auckland Council, and it went surprisingly well. So guys, you just need to jump in and give it a go, because people wanted to talk about this. People wanted to feel connected. And although we were all remote, we really wanted to make some eye contact, have some discussions that weren't just about deadlines and budgets, and reconnect as a team. And that was beautiful. And as part of that, then the lead team was, I want a piece of that too. Can you run a workshop with us? And so Penny, who's on the line, hey Penny, she was my co-facilitator. And we came together with the lead team and said, hey, how do you want the people on your teams to feel? How do you not want them to feel? And then how do we know? And again, I love that later stage, talking about it. Yes, we want them to feel these really good things. We don't want them to feel, the not so good stuff, but acknowledging that they might. So what are we going to do to help them through that? And I think that's really, really powerful to be able to have that kind of action plan off the back of it. I'm sorry about the photos of me, but what I found when I was doing my reports for the silver and bronze is I didn't like taking photos of people in the remote sessions, because it just didn't feel safe. It didn't feel right to put their faces on, even if I'd asked them. So what I've got, I had to really think a bit creative about how do I actually show that I'm running these workshops and getting the value from them. So I thought something that people were interested in was how we use the technology. And I'm not great at tech, and I can see Andrew's on the line and he's helped me with some of my sessions as well. And we tried things like RetroTool. So that's a great retrotool.io, I believe it is, because you can get that feeling of Post-it notes. So again, I love Post-it notes and Sharpies. Lots of our workshops are great when they're in person with that. We were trying to find a way we could get that feeling that you were writing things up on a board, ticking them, or dot voting. So if you're familiar with dot voting, especially when you're online, you can give people a certain number of votes and they can choose the feelings that are most important to them, that they feel the team needs to be successful. And so we played with a bit of the tech that was really cool. And then more recently, just before the Easter break, I ran a workshop with a number of teams down at the Waikato DHB. And they've been going through, as I guess all of us are, lots of change, but they've had some pretty tough times with dealing with COVID and then a big cyber attack. And what I did with this group of people is do a bit of I call it my mashup of the emotional culture canvas and what we call is an Agile team charter. and taking, I think, the best of both bits, but really tailoring it to the needs of the organisation and the team. So playing with the cards, again, it was online, but working through what are the desired feelings and how do we recognise and reward all that good stuff. And then the stuff that we don't want, but acknowledge it's probably going to happen because there's all sorts of change and craziness going on. How can we support each other through that? How are we going to feel safe to put our hands up if we're feeling overwhelmed or anxious or whatever it might be? And so we created, it was a 2-part session. The first part was mainly playing with the cards and talking about how we do and don't want to feel and how we want to be successful together. And then the second part of the workshop was actually, what are we going to do to make this happen? When are we going to come together to review these charters? When are we going to celebrate our successes? And what does that look like? So yeah, I'm loving how it's got so many different ways you can use the cards and create lots of different discussions and action plans around it. So not a pretty slide, but some questions that I thought people might be interested in. So thank you, Jeremy, for the prompts. Some people have asked me how I've had teams or organizations buy into the game. I'm like, what do you mean? Why would you not want to do the game? And for me, that's really where it starts. I don't understand how anyone would not see value in this. And so what I do is, and I take it from a 2-pronged approach. Sometimes as a consultant from Frank, we can offer this. And in my experience, it's been a great way to get teams together and really get them to that high performing level very quickly. Or it could be sometimes actually as a team, we've got some new people working together. They're working in a different way. How can we best set them up for success? Actually, let's find out from them what they need and what they want and how we can help with that. So I haven't had any pushback. I guess if it was trying to be a half-day session, that might be a struggle for some people in terms of the time commitment. But then when I felt like we needed a 4-hour session, I broke it into 2-hour sessions 2 weeks apart. And that feels less scary. And people could find, time in their diary to have 2-hour sessions rather than a 4-hour block. In terms of who the game's helped and how, I guess me for starters, the conversations, like I say, with my kids was incredibly insightful in terms of how they were actually feeling, and it helped me kind of wrap some support around them. Also with me working with the teams, actually getting a better insight into how people were feeling, how they were feeling about coming to work, or most often in my case, not coming to work, working from home, and how that remote environment was impacting them. I've had people come up to me afterwards and go, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I really felt like I couldn't bring that part of myself into the virtual office. It was really great to connect on a much deeper level than we tend to with these people on my team. And often you do team building exercise and they might feel a bit twee, but this can be really powerful. And it's up to people to share how much they want to. So it's really important to create that safe space where people feel they can share. And that's some of the things that I learned from going to other meetups and from listening to people's stories and from doing the course with Jeremy. Share your stories first. And I think that by kind of leading by example and saying that, hey, it's totally okay to have some of these not so good feelings, but then what are we going to do about it? So personally, it's helped me, it's helped team members. I like to think it's helped my kids. And I think it's helps the organizations as well. And so this is something that I also kind of talk about in terms of, developing or creating a high performing team. It's based on trust. And, if you look at some authors like Patrick Lencioni, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, it's all based on a foundation of trust. If you look at the Aristotle work that Google did, how do they get their high performing teams? It's all based on people trusting each other and understanding where we're coming from and the different parts of us that we can bring into the workplace. And so sometimes if you're getting any pushback from organizations, it might be helpful to reference some other kind of case studies. But I do genuinely believe that it helps the people, the teams, individuals, and the organizations, because if you're building high performing teams, people want to be a part of them. They're feeling that value from delivering to customers or to whoever it might be. They're getting that really positive feedback. Then it helps the organizations as well. And I truly believe too that it helps with retention of your good people when you're actually taking the time to ask them how they're feeling and what they want to do or how we can help them be more successful. And I've even seen this helping attract new people into organizations. Oh, I hear you've been doing the ECD. Man, it really feels like you care about people. Yes, we do. Come join our team. You know, we might not be able to pay as much as other people, but we care about you. We want to know how you're feeling. We want to set you up to be able to work in really good, flexible ways. So I love it. Love it. Helps everybody. I guess my biggest lesson was how free people can be. When you give them a language, it's actually really easy for them to talk about emotions and how they're feeling. And I guess that was my biggest surprise. I was expecting some pushback from people in different teams. And I had some people say, oh, Erika, you know, it's a great idea, love, but no one's going to talk to you about how they feel. You know, often they said, oh, it's a cultural thing. You know, a lot of these people aren't going to want to express what they're feeling for fear of some potential, you know, recrimination, whatever it might be. But no, once you create that space, you lead from the front, people are sharing their stories, you talk about it as a game. And I think that's really important as well. It's a game, it's fun. We just want to find out what you need and how we can help you and how we can come together. Sorry, guys, keep an eye on the time. So yes, it's my biggest lesson was that people, once you start, they're very open to share. So a couple of top tips for remote workshops, which is where I've had the most of my experience. Tailor the game for your audience. So I started off with the pack that Jeremy had put together, and it was great. I wanted to change it up a bit with asking different questions, using the cards in different ways, tailoring the emotional culture canvas. You've got total ability to do that. Please remember to acknowledge where the inspiration came from. So always support Riders and Elephants and drop them a link and talk about, Jeremy and the team, because that's super, super important. And I've also found to have a co-facilitator is important. For me personally, tech scares me. So I don't want to be worried about that. I want to be focused fully on the people, on the conversation. You know, we're talking about how they feel and their emotions. That's pretty intense, quite personal stuff. I don't want to have to be worried in the background that I'm typing the right words in that they're saying or that I'm filling out the canvases. So I've been very fortunate to have super co-facilitators to be able to focus on that so I can focus on the people. Practice with the tech. I had practiced and we were using a particular tool with the people that I'd practiced with. That was great until we got to the real live workshop and people who were dialing in from the office didn't have access to it. So if you, like anything, have a backup plan. There's some great tech that you can use out there for remote workshops. Make sure people have access to it. And then my last point, just get out and do it. Okay, the real value is in having these conversations, okay? It's not having a beautiful set of cards sitting in your cupboard. So please, I just encourage you, connect with other people through the community, through LinkedIn. If you've done the course, there's some great stuff on Slack, but please just get a good person if you want to help co-facilitate your first one. Get on out there and do it because you'll get real value from it, and so will the people that you're working with.